Straight ahead, you'll meet two creative individuals who will share their experiences working in the art department with props and sets. You'll meet Jeff Barrows and Mike Platarote. It's all coming up next on Below the Line.
It's Below the Line with George Peroulas. Tonight's guests are
The art department consists of several talented individuals working together to create the visual element of a TV show or a feature film. My guests today are Jeff Barrows, prop master and owner of Race City Props, and Mike Platarote, lead man and set dresser who works in New York on the shows Law and Order. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Mike, tell me about you. How did you get started in the industry?
I started as an actor in the industry, and I was doing a play off Broadway called Tony and Tina's Wedding. And somebody saw me in the play and recommended me for a low-budget film. And I met the writer-director, and he happened to be a prop master. So he cast me in his film, we became friends, and afterwards he says, why don't you take the test to get into the union? And if you pass the test, when you pass the test, I'll sponsor you, and I'll get you in. And that's what happened.
All right. And JB, how did you begin? You go by JB.
JB, yep, short for Jeff Barrows.
All right.
And I started in Wilmington, North Carolina, and my first film was Super Mario Brothers, and I worked as a security officer. And it just came down through the ranks. You know, they needed somebody for second unit props, and I volunteered, and my career started from there.
And you continued working in the business with set dressing and
In the
painting
paint
and all that.
department and then the set dressing department, and worked my way up through the ranks in the art department to become a lead man, and then went up to be a prop master.
Okay, and basically, what is a prop?
A prop is anything that an actor touches. So it could be your watch, your ring, maybe a hat, a purse. You know, anything an actor touches is a prop.
And what does it take to become and be a good prop master?
To be a good prop master, I would say you have to be very resourceful, very handy. You know, you might have to come up with a bunch of crazy stuff. Anything from you know, from a soccer ball to having groceries in a grocery bag, to having flowers, to, I mean, what's the craziest thing we've ever had to come up with?
The 1957 radio.
Yeah, you know, or having flash bulbs for a camera, doing a camera effect off camera. I mean, you just never know what you're going to have to end up having to come up with.
So you have to be very resourceful and
Yes.
have the resources to track down some unusual
Right.
items if they're not present day or modern
Right.
day, right?
Right. Like today, I'm working on a project. Even, you know, this morning, you know, my budget won't allow me to purchase, you know, the 5 branches of, you know, flags, you know, for this show. So I'm actually having to make a donation to the local ROTC to actually borrow them. You know, that would be better served, you know.
And Mike, you've also worked as a prop man, and your specialty is lead man and set dressing. What does a lead man do?
He's basically the head set dresser, and he works closely with the decorator, and the decorator will buy whatever he or she needs for a particular set, and the lead man will delegate his set dressers to go with the decorator and to place everything, hang things, whatever she needs to make the set for the character.
And what sort of communication do you have with the set decorator and getting everything coordinated for a scene?
Work very closely with the decorator because we have to know exactly how she or he wants things, what kind of look they're looking for. And what I would do, I would go on location with my set decorator when I'm shooting like Law and Order or Criminal Intent. And basically, she would we would confer and tell me exactly what she wants, where she wants it, and I would delegate my guys to specific jobs to make sure it all gets done. So I pretty much see the whole process. I oversee everything when we go on location.
And you were telling me earlier that you had to turn a regular bar into an Irish bar, which entails a lot of specialty decorations. How does that work?
Correct. We were actually filming in Chinatown, and we had to do an Irish bar for the scene, and we were in an Asian bar, so there was a lot of obviously Asian writings and decorations. We had to clean that all out, bring in what the decorator bought, made it look like an Irish bar, flags, pictures of police officers, firemen, typical, Irish bar.
Shamrocks.
Exactly. And then once the scene was shot, we went back the next day, struck everything that was Irish, and we put everything back, restore it to their, how it was before we took everything out.
And what sort of process does it take to go into some place, change it for the set, they come in and film it, and then the next day you go and you change it back? What's that whole process? Is it days, hours?
It's usually a 3-day process. It could take an 8-hour day, it could take a 12-hour day, depending on how intense or extensive the set is. But usually we'll go in ahead of time, a day before the shooting crew gets there, work with the decorator, decorate it to her liking, and then the next day the shooting crew will come, we'll open the set, make sure everything's okay. We'll probably move on to something else while they shoot there. Third day, we'll come back and restore it.
And you enjoy working in this fashion versus working with a film crew on film day? You like working ahead, right?
Yeah, I've done a lot of props, as I was telling JB, and it's a lot of hours. And you can work 14, 15, 18 hours a day. So when I had a chance to start doing set dressing, lead man stuff, usually it's a 10-hour day, maybe a 12-hour day occasionally. So you go home before it gets dark and you can see your family, that kind of thing. So it was a nice little change of pace.
You get home before the shooting crew gets home.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Which is a different work schedule, but you're still working on the same show. Sometimes you
Yes.
work ahead as well, too, right?
Correct.
Just episodics.
Correct.
Right.
How does that work?
We're usually always a day ahead of them. And then once they're on to the next episode, we're actually cleaning up from the last episode. So there's always a crew either ahead of them or behind them, always.
Now, these jobs that you both do are part of the whole art department. How do you all coordinate together with the production designer and the set dresser and the prop people? How do you all communicate and get things figured out for what you need to do for a movie or for a TV show?
Well, for television, you're with this family for 9.5 months out of the year, and for Law and Order, most people know that it's been around. One of the Law and Orders, the first one was around for 20 years, Special Victims around for 12, and Criminal Intent 11, and you get so familiar. It basically, we used to say that the show runs itself, and you just get into a rhythm, and people know what they're supposed to do, when they're supposed to do it. So there's not too many monkey wrenches thrown into the system, except for when you do a film, as JB would know, what happens with a film, anything can happen.
And JB, your experience?
And episodic, I mean, it's a lot easier too because you're with those people a lot more. And when you get into that moment and to that point, then you know what the decorator is going to, like, and you're going to anticipate what the lighting director, the DP, is going to light the set, and what certain colors are going to work and what certain colors are not going to work. So in that part, it's nice to work at something that's episodic. Film, you're forced to build those relationships immediately and then get to know each other as to know what those, the director, what the production designer and the decorator are going to like.
Right.
And you've both been working in the business for many years. Mike, tell me about one of the most creative or unusual or interesting sets that you've had to work on or come up with.
I would say that probably one of the most interesting was Die Hard 3. We actually, there was a scene when the explosion came out of the subway. We built everything underground. I mean, the beginning scene when the windows were blown out on 6th Avenue, the director wanted the cars to go this way and not that way. We actually shot on 7th Avenue. We had to take all the signs down. The glass had to be taken out. We had to put in, fake glass, breakaway glass. It was just very extensive, many months to film it. And actually, that film was brought down to South
Charleston.
Charleston.
Yeah.
Yeah. So actually,
we just found out.
Yeah, we just found out a few minutes ago that we both worked on the same film. I did in New York,
and I did
JB
Charleston.
did Charleston. Yeah.
And I was not cast in that one. So there you go. Anyway, now JB, tell me about any kind of unusual props that you've had to find, create, or wrangle.
Well, speaking of Die Hard 3, I mean, we probably even had one of the oddest things is we had 7 different types of gold bars. And we had, what was called the Hero Gold Bar.
Right.
And you only had a certain amount of those, and those actually weighed and looked and were painted just like gold bars. But we had, for background, we had, for deep background, we had plastic.
Right.
Stacks of gold bars. So we had 7 different kinds of gold bars.
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing that you would have to have so many different types, but based upon what your needs were and the quantity in that particular shot, it's depended on what you used.
And as far as close-ups, because if it's a close-up on the gold bar and the villain has the gold bar,
Yeah.
everything is magnified on a screen, so it has to be as real as
Yeah.
you can get. But when JB was saying, in the background,
Yeah.
you can't tell it's plastic
Right.
because it's so deep in the background, but there has to be something there.
Yeah.
Now, JB, you've also had to come up with some sort of device to make coffee ripple or something. What's that story?
Yeah, I've had to, one of the things we wanted to do was simulate when the race car came through town, there was a secretary sitting at her desk and they wanted ripples in the coffee. And so rather than just beating on the desk and making ripples, I just stuck a personal stimulating device underneath the desk and just turned it on and made the ripples in the coffee.
Brilliant.
Little Hollywood secrets of how
Yeah.
things really happen that you just don't know.
Right.
And that's how they
Right.
do it. It's not that hard. Now, a person who works as a prop master, do they also need to be specialized in building props, or is that done by somebody else?
We build our own. I mean, I would say a prop master is a glorified handyman. I mean, you need to know anything from electrical to plumbing to, painting, construction. I just did a recent commercial where, I had to I had to put a red light on a phone, and I also had to put a red light on a timer for a kitchen timer, and make them operational, but make them go on and off, when I wanted it to. So I mean, you have to be very, very diversified, because you never know what you're going to end up having to build or create, even though it's not real or it's not practical.
And what are you working on right now?
Right now, for instance, for this particular show, we have a guy that's actually getting stabbed by a screwdriver, and in the shot, it's a retractable screwdriver, so it's a real handle, but I'm going to actually take it to the next step. So when he is stabbed with it, this next step, and I'll have probably 4 different types of screwdrivers, is I'm actually going to have blood within the handle, within the shaft of it. So when he does get stabbed, when he goes to pull it out, there's blood there. So this will be the first prototype, and then my second one will actually have the blood inside of it.
All right, very interesting.
Yeah.
Now, what sort of inventory or warehouse system do you use to keep track of the screwdrivers and the breakaway glass and that 1957 radio?
Yeah, it's typical. I mean, I have a 5,000 square foot warehouse, and typical industrial shelving. Everything is in totes and labeled. I'm pretty anal on that, and it's what we call idiot proof it.
Yes.
If I say to go get the school paperwork, they know which aisle to go down. Or if I go say, go get the racing, headsets, the AM/FM radio headsets, it's all labeled, and they know to go get that and put it on the truck.
Because props are very anal people, and in this business, time is money. So if the director yells, JB, I need this, or Mike, I need that, and you got to tell our guys, they have to know exactly where it is so they don't keep searching for it, and they get it immediately to the set.
Like when you step on my prop truck, all the character totes will be in line, and everything will, be labeled. So if I say, if in the morning, if I need Frank's props, and if I need George's props, I know to go on the truck, and in the beginning of the day, I pull those totes out, and I'm ready, and I have your watch, your ring, whatever those particular props may be.
And you've worked on feature films and commercials.
Yes.
What is the difference in the prep time when working on a feature film that films for a long period of time or a commercial that's only going to shoot for a few days?
Commercials are different in that for prop people and the art department people, you're everything. You're from the paint department, construction, graphics, props, set dressing, special effects. You might be, you might be doing a NASCAR scene and having the pit crew jump over the wall, but you're, not only providing those props and tires and lug nuts, but also doing a smoke effect. Maybe there's a car behind or a car, in front. So commercials, there's a lot more involved. When you're doing a feature film, to me, it's kind of like a vacation because I'm only doing props. I'm not having to deal with and handle all the other departments. So for me, it's like a vacation, and you have a longer period of time, whereas for commercials, you might have a 1 or 3 day prep, and that's it.
Have you ever worked with an actor who just couldn't work the prop or figure out how it worked or kept breaking it? And what do you do with that?
What's funny is I have had an actor, it was so simple, and in this particular scene, he made it part of the scene in that he threw his U.S. Marshal's badge. And I ended up going through 6 U.S. Marshal's badge because he kept throwing it at the car or, you know, in the car, and he just kept breaking them. It was something so simple and ridiculous.
And speaking of breaking, a lot of times there's bar fights, for example, and they break chairs and beer bottles and all that. How do you prepare for that?
Well, for one, you have real glass or real bottles, real champagne bottles or real champagne glasses, but then you'll have breakaway, what's called breakaway glass, and it's made out of sugar glass, and you could actually eat it. But, you know, if the director says he's going to need, you know, we're going to do 3 takes of that, well, you know, and in that scene there might be 2 champagne bottles and, you know, 3 glasses or 4 glasses. Well, if that's what he says, then I just double that. No matter what, I'll double the order, even though he said he's only going to do 3 takes.
Very good. Coming up next, we'll have an exclusive behind-the-scenes look at the hit TV show franchise Law & Order, because Mike here works on it. We're back in a moment.
So you can't save money? That's easy as pie. Brown bag your lunch instead of going out. $6 save times 5 days a week times 10 years is $21,000. That's a lot of lettuce. Small changes today, big bucks tomorrow. Feedthepig.org.
We're talking with prop master Jeff Barrows and lead man Mike Platarote. Now, Mike, you've been working in New York on the Law & Order franchise, Law & Order, Criminal Intent, and SVU. What's it like working on crime shows?
It's a great franchise to have worked on, and I still continue to work on it because it's so well received in New York. People, you know, you break out the trucks and you coming out, and people are like, what are you filming? Law & Order? Oh, that's my show. People really get a big kick out of it. And it's just like so well received no matter what section of the city that we're filming in. It could be a high-end section of Fifth Avenue or, you know, a lower-end section, but just people just are so happy that we're there and filming that it's been a great experience.
And give us the inside scoop on how these shows are done.
Typically, it takes about 8 days to film one episode. Usually, it's split in half: 4 days inside the studio and 4 days on location. 4 days inside the studio is the sets that are already standing, like, you know, squad room or courtroom, and locations, depending on what the episode is about or what kind of characters we're looking at, then that'll dictate where we film in New York. So if it's a high society socialite, you know, gets murdered, well, we're going to be filming in, you know, Lexington Avenue or Fifth Avenue or something like that. But if it's, you know, somebody who got killed in a ghetto or something, then we're going to film in, you know, other sections of New York.
And what's it like working on a series? You know, it's long days, you're working for months and months and months, and you're always on the go. How do you stay focused to keep yourself as a person refreshed to come to work every day?
Well, it's the relationships that you make during the filming, and especially like we're talking about when you do episodic, it's like family because you spend more time with these people than you do with your own family sometimes, and like the show runs itself after a while, so you just know what's going on. There's not too many surprises as opposed to a feature film, which comes in and you're meeting people for the first time and you don't know what their likes and dislikes are. And you can't anticipate as much until you start to get to know these people. So with a television show, and it's great to have 9.5 months of steady work. It's a blessing.
Right.
So that's the good part about it.
And for both of you, what other departments do you commonly work with? Mike?
Well, when you're working on set, you're working with grips and electrics, and you're working with everybody basically, because once we're filming this way, you're anticipating, obviously we're going to film the next direction behind, so we're already talking about if JB and I are the set dressers, all right, once they cut and we turn around, we got to move this, we got to move that, we got to move it over here, and if something's in the way, hey, if you're a grip, and I'll say, hey George, we need to put the piano over there, could you move your equipment down that way a little bit for us in anticipation of the turnaround? And so we're always constantly working with everybody.
Right.
And you?
Yeah, and the director might, throw in, oh, well, for this scene, I know that we didn't prepare for it, but I'd like for them to be drinking coffee. Make it happen. So you never know what might come up on the fly. Or, change of scene, it might be, in the same room, but it's a different day, and the props may be different. There may be fresh flowers on the table, or it's in the morning. How do you know it's the morning and not the afternoon? Are there kitchen, items still left out on the counter, breakfast items? How do you know what part of the day it is?
One of the toughest
besides
things.
just a clock.
Right. One of the toughest things, and I'm sure George can, JB can attest to this, is that when we're shooting with food or drinks, continuity is so key. It's so key, because how many times have you seen in a film where you're shooting somebody and they have this much left in the glass,
right,
and then they cut back this way and they cut back to you and the glass is full again.
Right.
So you constantly have to keep up on that.
Yep.
Now your work is similar in that the fact that you work in the art department.
Mm-hmm.
What is the advantages or the pros and cons of working on something for a long period of time, and something with you, JB, it's a shorter gig for you usually?
Mm-hmm.
What are the pros and cons in what you do?
Well, the pros, I would say, especially in this industry, one of the great benefits is knowing that you helped create something and you actually see it from the beginning to the end. And then not only to the end, other people see it. So they see it on television. So that's one great benefit I see. And I'm not just a number and somebody sitting in a cubicle. The other pros is, for me, for doing commercials, is it's short. You're in and you're out. And working on feature films, it's great in that, yes, for me, from taking a break from doing commercials, it is longer. A typical, like $40 million project might take 4 to 6 months to make. So I'm within that family for that long period of time.
And Mike?
And episodic is usually 9.5 to 10 months out of the year, so it's basically, job security. And with episodic, as opposed to feature film or commercial, because you're there so long a period of time and you have these relationships, if you need some time off, it's usually not too hard to replace you.
More with Jeff, JB Barrows, and Mike Platarote coming up next on Below the Line.
Ready. 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 Ready.
It can be a little awkward when your friend tells you he's been diagnosed with a mental illness. But what's even more awkward is, if you're not there for him, he's less likely to recover.
I'm here to help, man, whatever it takes.
Let's turn over this log. Yeah. Whoa! I like the brown wiggly one.
I like the green crunchy ones myself.
Whoa.
Go to discovertheforest.org.
We're back with JB, props master, and Mike, set dresser. Mike, you do work in New York, and tell me how the whole union thing works.
Basically, to get inside into the union, you have to take a test. When I took my test back in the early 90s, there's no book to study from. Basically, it's just being on set and doing it over and over. That's how you learn, basically. And what I did, I paid my own way to Seattle. My friend was doing, he was prop mastering Sleepless in Seattle, Tom Hanks. And I stayed on set for like 3 weeks, just taking in everything that I could. And, finally passed the test. And then you have to get voted in. So once you pass, you're still not in. Then you have to have somebody sponsor you, stand up for you. And obviously my friend, he did that for me, and I've been in for quite a while.
And is this the protocol for other crew jobs, other below-the-line jobs, grips and gaffers?
Yes, all of the departments have to take a test. Grips, sounds, electric, all of them have to take a test.
Now, JB, if somebody wants to get into the prop business, what do you tell them?
It's in this industry, it's all in who you know. In the South, there are unions down here, but you are in a right-to-work state. But it's all in who you know. I mean, it's not so much being a part of, the union or a union, but, if a project comes into the North Carolina or the South Carolina area It's going to be all in who you know and who's available.
So what recommendations do you have to young people who want to get on a set and build these things that you create, or be an assistant prop person, or work their way up? What do you tell them?
The first thing I would do is actually become a production assistant. Being a PA, you have to work with all of the departments and get to know everybody within those departments. And doing so, then you actually learn what each individual and each person is responsible for. And after you become a production assistant, then you can determine what department you actually want to work in. I think that would be the better way to do it.
That's a good way to do it, because then they can pick and choose.
If
They're going in saying, oh, I want to be a prop, but then after being a PA, they say, you know what, I really like what grips do. I'd rather be a grip.
Right,
So
exactly.
it's a great way to learn the system and a great way to know what everybody does, because everybody has a specific job, and it's run that way, where you do your job and you don't, as I say, get into somebody else's rice bowl. You try not to do that.
And being a PA, you don't have to be a union member right up, immediately.
Right.
And Mike, you also host a radio show. What is that about?
Oh, besides film and television, my other love is sports, and I host a show based on New York sports, and we talk about New York sports down here in Charlotte. And people can listen to it every weekend on Sundays from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. on WAVO, which is 1410 or 1150 on AM, or they can go to our website, which is www.newyorksportstalk.org, and you can listen, because we stream online on the computer as well. And basically, we talk about all sports, but our main focus is all the New Yorkers that have moved down here that don't get the news about the Yankees and the Mets and the Giants and the Jets. So it's a forum for them to listen, to find out what's going on back up north, and to call in and discuss it.
And what do you have coming up next?
I'm going to do the final 8 episodes. I'm going to head to New York, do the final 8 episodes of Criminal Intent, and I will continue to work on the radio show.
Great. And JB, what do you have coming up next?
I've got 3 racing commercials coming up next is what I'll be working on. So 2 here in Charlotte, and then probably 1 down in Atlanta.
All right. JB and Mike, thank you so much for coming today. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Below the Line concludes right after this. Stay with us.
Real men know that getting tested is the way to take care of their families. That's why real men wear gowns. For a list of the tests you need, go to ahrq.gov.
Thanks again to my guests, Jeff Barrows and Mike Platarote, and thank you for watching. Please contact us with your questions, comments, and show ideas. The email address is belowtheline21@gmail.com, and join our fan page on Facebook. We'll see you next time.
For more information, comments, or questions about the show, email us at belowtheline21@gmail.com.